Town of Prescott Valley Study Session, March 7th, 2024. Call to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Leyva,
Here.
Councilmember Greer,
Here.
Councilmember Dickinson,
Here.
Councilmember Hepperly,
Here.
Councilmember Schumacher, Vice Mayor Hunt,
Here.
Mayor Pulgoda.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. First up, Central Yavapai Metropolitan Planning Organization, known as SIMPO. Mr. Gallegos, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Mayor Palguda, members of the council. Glad to be with you today. And we have a presentation for you with staff. I am Vinny Gallegos, Executive Director of the Central Yavapai Metropolitan Planning Organization, or SIMPO for short. We try to come visit you all at least once a year. I know we talk throughout the year, but to give an annual presentation to all of our city councils, town councils, and board of supervisors. Just a reminder for all those in the room what SIMPO is. Our vision is to promote and maintain a regional coordinated transportation system for the safe, efficient movement of people, goods, and services. And our mission is to use regional leadership in planning and promoting a comprehensive multimodal transportation system. I always like to emphasize the 4 parts of our mission that we really work hard as a staff to emphasize. That we're regional in nature, that one of the main things we're our strongest at is our leadership. We're a planning organization and our focus is transportation. Just to start with a quote, "He who builds a great road earns a place in history," Ralph Waldo Emerson. So you all have just rebuilt Glassford Hill Road, so you have a place in history. Congratulations. So we join in with you in building roads, maintaining roads, promoting transportation throughout the region. Again, SIMPO was formed in 2003 when the governor established us. MPOs exist throughout the United States wherever a population of 50,000 people or more. Today, our planning area is around 400 square miles, 145,000 people. Recently, at our annual board retreat with staff and our technical committee, I did bring forward a recommendation to update our planning boundary. So I'm here to announce and to share with you all that it was approved by the SIMPO Executive Board recommendation to go with what you see on the map that is scenario B. So SIMPO will be expanding its planning boundary for all of Yavapai County except the Verde Valley. So what you can see on the map is the base is where we are currently. Again, that's the 400 square miles. The contemplation was either scenario A, B, or C. The final recommendation was accepted as B, so that's all of western and southern Yavapai County. Why this is important is Yavapai County is either has oversight by Northern Arizona Council of Governments or SIMPO, and we just feel serving the greater public, the greater region, and the greater transportation system in partnering with NACOG and SIMPO, that us covering this western part will serve the transportation network the best. So this year we get to celebrate 20 years of SIMPO. Again, we were established in 2003. A reminder who I serve is our executive board. Our current chairperson is Supervisor Craig Brown, who represents Yavapai County. Mayor Palguda is representing the town of Prescott Valley. Mayor Good is our secretary treasurer representing Prescott. Mayor John Hughes represents Dewey Humboldt and is the vice chair. And we have a typo, Tom Armstrong is the vice mayor of Chino Valley. We still have him as council member. And then the state has a representative in Gary Knight, who represents the Arizona Department of Transportation. My closing slide as I turn it over to staff is a reminder. SIMPO is working with all the MPOs and the councils of government in rural Arizona and making an ask of the state legislature. I'm sure you've all seen updates or heard updates on the economic forecast for the state budget, and it's not positive. There's some negatives to it, so it's a little bit ironic that I'm showing an additional request. With that said, though, this has already been received by the Senate Transportation Committee, House Transportation Committee, and they've approved it to go on to appropriations. Why that's important is they recognize that transportation is critical. It's important throughout the state of Arizona. So SIMPO is part of a $400 million ask, of which SIMPO would receive about $33 million. Last year, we were successful in getting the town of Prescott Valley $9.9 million for Glassford Hill Road for the expansion improvements that you're going to be making very soon. This year, the priority has been set for the $33 million. The number one project is in the town of Chino Valley for improvements of Highway 89 between 3 and 5 North. That project's about $13 million. We also have the eastbound on-ramps project at 89 and 89A. And then if we are successful with the full list, you would receive some regional pavement preservation funds to support your maintaining of the roadway network. So I'm proud to be with staff today. So I'm going to turn it over to Bryn Stotler, and she's going to walk through some projects that we have in our area and a little bit more about SIMPO. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's great to be with you today. So kind of a rhetorical question to ask a town council, but what is the role of SIMPO? How are we different from what you all do? You know, we don't deliver direct services. We don't deliver water. We don't build shopping centers, but we connect all of those things, and we do it through regional partnership and collaboration. So important to connect all of the leaders in our region and make progress on the biggest issues, and you guys are well acquainted with those. You know, regional efforts have centered around economic development, water, transportation. We are still standing, and we are advocates of regional cooperation, and we like to be in that conversation. So what's happening in roadway planning? You might recognize some of these logos. Sundog Connector, that's a plan that we just completed. State Route 69 Corridor Master Plan, I'll go into a little detail on. We just completed also our Regional Transportation Safety Plan, which gives your public safety officers all of the data backdrop that they need to do proper traffic control, and your traffic teams in Public Works to figure out where mitigations need to occur. And then we have the ACT UP, which we've talked with you about before, which is the Active Transportation Plan. It's a bicycle and pedestrian plan that is underway. So let's talk a little bit about the wrap-up of Sundog Connector. We delivered the final draft DCR and an environmental overview. It's a design concept report. Posted for the public for a couple of weeks from the end of January to February 13th. We presented that to our TAC. The TAC recommended to the executive board to receive that final draft, and our consultant team at AECOM presented that to the executive board just last week, and the board voted to receive the DCR. All of the indications from the various parties involved are that this project is not currently going to move forward. So we have a great design concept report in the event that it ever does become something that people in leadership would like to act on. We're proud of the 2 years of work that we did. It is a viable bypass route for emergency evacuation and other important reasons, traffic congestion relief being primary. State Route 69 Corridor Master Plan. This is so important to Prescott Valley as the state route goes straight through your jurisdiction. We're looking at 9 segments, 17.4 miles. The segments are going to be identified for optimized improvements and prioritized, and we will coordinate across all jurisdictions on this plan, including ADOT, because they are the owner of the roadway, although there is some maintenance assigned to the jurisdictions. This one is just getting into the public engagement phase. So I'm going to leave, I didn't bring enough for everybody, but I'm going to leave a few of these on the back table. Please use the QR code or just go to our website to SR69 and fill out our survey if you haven't already. We want to hear from the community on where you think the pinch points and the pain points are on Highway 69, and how can we help our business community thrive in light of the issues of traffic congestion and so forth. This shows you the segments that are being identified. It is from the town of Dewey Humboldt all the way to the city of Prescott. So we have a lot of possible improvements to make. I think everybody recognizes that this roadway is our primary, the spine into the region from the interstate system, and we want to optimize these areas. Again, we're looking for public involvement, so there's a QR code. If anybody's technically savvy and wants to get their phone out right now, you can take a quick, I think, 9-question survey, and we'd like to hear your opinions. As I mentioned, we just completed a regional transportation safety plan for the region. We did it in partnership with NACOG and with Metroplan of Flagstaff. But what we got on the back end of that is a 5-year look at public safety crash data. The plan itself can be accessed on simpo.org, and it does have a digital component where you can see a heat map that shows you where all of the probably most egregious safety issues reside. This helps guide us for the next 5-year period in planning for traffic mitigation and helping to get those unfortunate statistics of serious injury and fatalities down. And this just gives you a regional snapshot of what that looks like. You'll see Prescott Valley's line item there in the middle. ADOT adopts a Vision Zero policy, which is to minimize fatalities to zero. We, by extension, adopt that as the MPO, and we'd like to see that 56 number significantly decrease in the coming period. I mentioned active transportation, and I know I've been here in front of you plugging it before. If you are a bicyclist, if you like to hike, if you get to places on foot, if you would like to have additional transportation choices other than your personal owned vehicle, please get involved in this conversation. This plan is going to look at not only the region for bicycle and pedestrian facilities, but it's going to look at drill down on each jurisdiction, each of our member agencies, so that you as a town will be able to identify where you'd like to see additional facilities evolve or connected to other facilities. It's also going to look at school campuses, circulation, and the 1 mile radius around a school campus that's still reserved for bicycling and walking students. I know that's not as common anymore, but we want to prioritize the safety of those areas. So join the conversation. Here's another QR code, or go to simpo.org and there's a page for ACT UP. We want to hear your opinions about transportation choices in the region. We want to know whether or not you utilize bicycle and pedestrian facilities and what you'd like to see evolve in your town. And then the Bible of transportation for the region, much like the town's general plan, the RTP. It's our long-range transportation plan. By federal mandate, we update it every 5 years. It is a 25-year forward look in the region. It looks at how things are currently operating, where development is going to occur, where commercial development is going to occur, and how do we optimize everything under that umbrella? How do we increase transit options and availability? How do we optimize the performance of the regional road network? And how do we just plan for the eventuality of more people on the road? With that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Leslie Contreras.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome.
Hi, Council, Mayor, Council members. We are currently starting a road safety assessment here in Prescott Valley. It's from Robert Road to the base of Mingus Mountain. In the last 5 years, there's been 60 crashes and 3 fatalities. So we're really interested in that 8-mile corridor. The goal of this is to see if we can improve passing lane do shoulder improvements and have greater speed enforcement. So we're going to initiate that in the next 2 weeks. The town is going to be part of it. The police department's going to be part of it. CAFMA's going to be part of it. ADOT's going to be part of it. And we also hired a consultant to be part of that. So we're really excited about that specific project. Another thing that we're doing is really pushing to get community input. I think that the message of what Simple is and what Simple does has been misunderstood for a while. So we're really trying to push out the narrative of the fact that Simple is more than just building roads or getting money for roads. We're active transportation, we're transit now. So we're really utilizing social media to get the message out there. So I would encourage all of you guys, if you haven't, follow us on social media, because we're going to be posting more there on both Instagram and Facebook. And then the last thing is we're also continuing our traditional outreach with our Simple newsletters as well as with flyers. So we will make sure to continue reaching as many people as possible with as many different marketing avenues as possible. So that is all from me. I will introduce Michael Lamar.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. It's nice to be with pleasant elected officials. You're restoring my faith in humanity, so that's good. Okay, on a serious note, SIMPO is a regional organization that is really focused on issues and providing services that really transcend single jurisdictions. As many of you know, there's not a ton of those kind of efforts in our region, and we are really committed to helping with this and trying to bring more efforts that are of a regional focus into our region. Specifically, I'm working on environmental initiatives in transit. And why do that? Well, obviously, regional big picture thinking leads to enhanced connectivity, better sharing of scarce public resources, improved public services, and more inclusive product service delivery. I'm kind of preaching to the choir, but in any instance that I've ever worked in a regional perspective, it's always been better than a one jurisdiction perspective. One of the regional environmental initiatives under consideration, actually there's multiple here, master planning of the Glassford Dells Park, a trails plan to improve the connectivity between trail systems that transcend jurisdictions, the creation of a wildlife corridor plan, and potentially the creation of an ecotourism plan. You know, just focusing a little bit in more detail on regional trails, better trail systems lead to better conservation efforts and provide opportunities for funding partnerships and resource sharing. And really, maybe most importantly, a regional trail system that has connectivity across jurisdictions could be the focus or maybe the linchpin of an ecotourism product. I got a lot of grief for this picture. It looks like it's from like the Sahara Desert. Sorry about that. Ecotourism, as many of you know, is a tourism directed toward the natural environment and is intended to support conservation efforts. And this area really does have an abundance of disorganized ecotourism resources, maybe looking for better coordination and collaboration. Switching gears. I got a lot of abuse about that slide too, but that's okay. Going to talk a little bit about regional transit. In terms of transit, by linking people to places, well-planned regional transit increases local ridership, improves equitable access to jobs, education, shopping, and the other needs of our residents. You can see that the transit benefits really transcend categories, from economic benefits to a decrease in traffic congestion to safety benefits and really an improvement in the quality of life. And as many of you know, we just added Yavaline to our dysfunctional SIMPO family, and we're very excited to have Yavaline with us. We're also working with Yavapai Regional Transit, Yavapai Apache Indian Tribe to ensure collaboration and connectivity are really at the forefront of future transit decisions. Additionally, we're reaching out to other transit providers in the community like vet organizations, charter schools, after-school programs in the service industry to tap other partners who might be interested in having a part of our regional transit vision. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Pedro, who's going to talk a little bit more specifically about Yavaline.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome, Pedro.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. I guess I'm approaching you from a different perspective today. I am with SIMPO, and it's been a pleasure to have been working with you. And really what I'm trying to do with SIMPO is to kind of continue that, the efforts with public transportation. So first off, I just wanted to kind of point out to you, of all, I guess, the successful deployments of microtransit here in Arizona, Prescott Valley being one of them. Right now we're, since its inception, so September of 2022, we have completed a little over 33,000 rides. That's pretty amazing, especially considering that the service area that we're serving has a population of 33,000. So just to kind of put things into perspective. But microtransit has really taken the state by storm. There's about 12 deployments here in Arizona. You know, all the way north, Flagstaff, west to Lake Havasu City, and all the way down south to Tucson. And really one of the key items is that with microtransit and the software that we're utilizing, we can just pull any type of data. For example, we understand our trip duration, average trip duration of about 12 minutes. The average distance for a trip is about 3 miles. You know, we can go on and on, origins and destinations, the most popular destinations. In this case, for Prescott Valley, our Walmart, Fry's, Safeway, those are your big hitters. 40% of the ridership are going to employment. The other 24% are going shopping. You know, those are your biggest trip purposes. So it's a pleasure to see how microtransit has really benefited the community. And as you know, we are progressing the system. So as part of the SIMPO's phased transit plan, we are on phase 1, serving Prescott Valley, and then we're moving on to phase 2 in Prescott. So that's not to say that we're taking the service from Prescott Valley and taking it to Prescott. We're running them simultaneously. And then as you see there, phases 3 and 4, we're looking at an expansion of zone and then finally connecting both. So here's a little bit more information on phase 2. We've already launched. We've had a soft launch March 4th. And it's a little over 4 square miles. It's going to be the same service that we're running here in Prescott Valley, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., still $2 a fare. Right now, as I mentioned, we're not linking the 2 zones, but we're adding an additional zone in Prescott. And so we've already gotten some rides, which has been good, and we're looking forward to what comes next. But we wanted to let you know of this new zone that has been implemented, as well as wanted to invite you to our kind of official ribbon cutting in April. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, those are the latest in transit. So any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Let me go to the next slide. Perfect.
So just one last slide here, and then happy to take questions of you. Just want to remind you again that SIMPO will be host to the 25th Arizona Rural Transportation Summit. We want all of you to actively participate with us as host. We're anticipating a little over 400 attendees of this. This conference has helped bring rural Arizona together to advocate for the transportation needs. The main agenda, or the main audience, is our state and local legislators, industry leaders, and staff. So it's critically important that not only are we the host, but your voices are present there. This is how our state legislators will set their agenda on our behalf as it relates to transportation. So again, October 16th through the 18th at the Prescott Resort, we're setting the agenda as an organization, looking forward to your input. We want to be able to highlight our entire region that week for all visitors. So we hope that the 400 attendees will bring their families, stay a day or two, visit Prescott Valley, Prescott, and the surrounding areas. So we will work with the chambers, work with you all, and really promote being hospitable hosts that week. So again, we really look forward to that conference. Our theme is On the Road Again. And with that said, happy to take questions and comments on all we covered.
Mr. Gallego, thank you. Thanks to your team for what they presented today. I just have a comment. I've heard Michael say before that the transit system we have is not your grandparents' transit, microtransit. Well, I think SIMPO is not our grandparents' SIMPO anymore. You've come here, you're utilizing social media, you have UR code surveys, trail planning, ecotourism, microtransit. It's incredible. You guys are out there just killing it. And if I didn't know any better, I would think you're working with a team of 10, 15 people. But you're not. We're looking at your team today, and you guys should be proud of what you put together, and the residents of Prescott Valley appreciate all that you do. And every day someone's driving on Glassford Hill Road or Highway 69, and it's largely in part to what you guys did to help get us some funding for that. So thank you to you guys.
Thank you, Mayor Palguda, and also thank you for allowing us to recruit one of your very own in Pedro Rodriguez. We're very happy that he's was trained here, if you will, or further trained, and we're able to receive him at SIMPO. Thank you.
Any questions or comments for the SIMPO team? Awesome.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Sticking with this theme of traffic, townwide speed study results and recommendations. Mr. Latier.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We have today to present the speed study to you, the town's very own brand new traffic engineer. I'd like to introduce Parker Murphy.
Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. As John said, my name is Parker Murphy. I'm the town's new traffic engineer. And thank you for having us present this to you today. Just a little bit of background on speed studies. The Arizona Revised Statutes grant local authorities the ability to set our own speed limits. For this project, we identified 19 corridors throughout the town. And part of that is collecting 24-hour bidirectional speed counts that include volume. These studies look at the average speed, 85th percentile, daily traffic volume, and we also look at the number of recorded collisions. The MTCD, the newest edition, 11th edition, came out last December. That's there for reference. The state of Arizona has until January 2026, I believe, to accept that, but it provides guidance on how to go forward with speed studies and setting speed limits. These are the locations that were selected. For ease, I put them in alphabetical order. If we have any questions, they'll be easy to get to, but Antelope Meadows Drive, Bradshaw Mountain Road, Enterprise Parkway, Glassford Hill Road, Granville Fairway, Lakeshore Drive, Long Lake Drive, Luce Drive, Navajo Drive, both segments of Old Black Canyon Highway. We also have county counts from Old Black Canyon Highway since the roadway was improved through there. Prescott East Highway, Robert Road, Santa Fe Loop Road, Spouse Drive, Stonebridge Drive, Tuscany Way, and then both segments of Viewpoint Drive, both north and south of 89A. Now, this is a summary of all of the recommendations from the reports that were completed. Of the recommendations, most are staying at the same speed limit, with the exception of Granville Fairway going from 25 miles per hour to 30 miles per hour. Prescott East Highway from Antelope to Granville going from 25 to 30 miles per hour. Robert Road was recommended from Roundup to SR 89A from 30 to 35. Santa Fe Loop Road, 20 to 30. Stonebridge Drive there was a recommendation to increase that by 5 miles per hour from 35 to 40. Tuscany Way, another 25 to 30. And Viewpoint Drive north of the 89A from 30 to 35. Some notes on those is we have some development going on in these areas and some changes, namely on Robert Road, where Humboldt Unified School District has recommended and is, I believe, moving forward with relocating the school to their district office up there. So there are some recommendations on this list that were identified in the studies that will require further study of us internally before we move forward with those. I have all the information, all the speed data, all the volume data, I think for the next 50 slides. But I'd like to open up for questions now before we move forward. If there's any comments, questions, concerns with some of the recommendations outlined here.
Questions or comments? Go ahead.
You want to go through all of them? If the council would prefer not going.
No, I don't
Then-
want to go through 50
Yeah,
slides.
So there's all the information is there. If you would like it, should be in your packet, but
So we received all the information in our packet. And if anyone from the public has any questions, can they reach out and go direct with you or someone else?
yes. So I would request that a public records request is submitted. We do have we did supply our comments to the consultant in late February. They just got back to us this week with the updated finalized reports. So now that we have those, we'll be open to answer any public questions on those.
If maybe we can get some of this on the website, that would be great too. We can just direct people to that if they have any questions about whatever happened in their neighborhood, or if we're looking at other streets or anything like that. I think that would help a lot.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this will come back to the council for a formal approval. So this is just a preview to it.
Great.
I just have a comment. Welcome to the team, first of all.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
And I like the way that the staff report read when it pointed out a few roads, and I'm thinking of the Viewpoint area that said that the road wasn't in final form yet and we would adjust the speed limit when it is. So I appreciated that, and I thank you very much. So I think that the residents that out there then will have a better understanding of, you know, the final speed limit when everything's done. So thanks for doing that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Anything else?
I have a comment. So, is what, within the study, was there any areas that you felt the speed should go lower?
A lot of the roadways that were analyzed, Councilmember Dickinson, were already posted at 25, and that's the minimum speed limit that we would post. The major roadways, like Glassford Hill, obviously we wouldn't want to lower speed limits there. So we didn't really identify anything that would be lowered. That would really come down to when we're looking at sight distance and horizontal vertical alignment and crash data. We did have crash data in all of these reports, but none of the crash data really led to us looking for speed reductions on any of the roadways.
Yes, I was thinking specifically in the vicinity of schools where the speed limit is reduced to 15 in some areas, and also in areas where there's blind, can't see where, you know, any traffic that's coming out. Like on Robert Road, they're going toward Tranquil. There's an area there that's blind. You can't see where people are coming down and onto the residential street. Maybe caution signs or something of that nature. Even on Manly, going to down toward Viewpoint, when you're coming up that hill, going toward Robert Road, there's a definite blind area where you can't see the resident with his RV pulling out onto Manly when people are coming up from Viewpoint, that sort of thing.
Yes, Councilmember Dickinson, that wasn't, sight distance in that sense wasn't included in these reports. This is looking at free flow speed along the corridor. That kind of issue with posting additional warning signs and things would be done outside of a speed study, where this is purely looking at the free flow speed and the traffic volume. So if there's a concern with blind spots and things like that, we can take care of with warning signs. That's something we would need a speed study for. We'd go out and analyze the condition in the field.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good job today. Next up, item 2C, Neighborhood Service Department. Ms. Robinson, I believe you're leading us off.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. How are you? My name is Stephanie Robinson. I am the new Neighborhood Services Director, so thank you for the wonderful opportunity to be able to present to you some information about the department in our fledgling stages. So, first, I wanted to give Mayor and members of council some information about the department. As you're well aware, the department was just created last year. So last July, we were fortunate enough to be able to have a Neighborhood Services Department. Right now, the department can at least say that we have a new Neighborhood Services Director, but we also have a couple of other positions as well, and some of those individuals are here today. We have, of course, some admin staff. Code compliance, of course, was moved into the department, as well as animal services. One of the things I do want to talk about more importantly is the fact that we are going through the process of analyzing the department in detail. What we don't want to do, of course, is just to go ahead, create the department and automatically assume that here's 8 million different projects and programs that we need to incorporate into the department. So we're going through that analysis stage as we speak right now. The department, as I said before, has about 9 positions. We recently interviewed for a grant coordinator's position. I'm very excited about that opportunity because as we start to look at growing the department, we're looking at trying to incorporate our CDBG program. So hopefully we will soon be an entitlement community, and we need staff to really be able to handle all of the resources, the funding, and the compliance things that come about as having a CDBG program. So I want to talk a little bit about just building the department, and I always talk about this in terms of setting a foundation. If anyone's ever built a house, you don't start with the roof and work your way down. You start by building a foundation and working your way up. And one of the things we've started to do in that process is to really look at the resources and the policies and procedures and things of that nature. We want to make sure we do one thing, or I wanted to make sure I do one thing very importantly, and that's to listen. Going out into the community, talking to people, doing ride-alongs, touring the neighborhoods, and really figuring out what's going on in the community and how can we be a resource and how we can help. So that is the very first portion of building the new department. The second part of that is actually planning. What do we do next? So we're looking, of course, at the budget, submitting those things along with every other department, of course, within Prescott Valley, for our town manager to be able to do that assessment. We also are looking at interdepartmental collaboration. There's no need of reinventing the wheel, but there may be some opportunities out there for us to collaborate quite well with Public Works, with our Community Services Department, Police Department, to figure out what additional resources we can bring to the community and to neighborhoods. And then, of course, we're looking at implementing those things. So one of the things we're looking at is even the operating authority for the department as a whole. When you look at neighborhood services, it's a brand new department, and we have not fully incorporated that into the town code. So working very closely, of course, with our town attorney to make sure that we've incorporated the actual authority to do enforcement, to make sure those things are transferred over properly, and in the process of that, to look and see if there are some things that we need to update and change so that we can operate more efficiently and more effectively in the community. We're also looking at communication and marketing. It's one thing to have a new department and to say we're out here in the community and to help, but it's another thing for us to actually sit down and figure out how do we do that, how do we communicate, and what exactly are we communicating to the community as a whole. So those are some of the things that we're trying to work on. I think the most important thing that we need to be working on is the evaluation and the assessment. And that does not happen just at one time in the year, but constantly evaluating programs, constantly doing the assessment, figuring out what's working, what's not working, and not being afraid to mess up. It's quite often that you may start a program, it may not work exactly the way in which you wanted it to work, but having the type of culture so that if we try something new, it doesn't work, let's figure out what didn't happen correctly, make some adjustments so that the next time that we go out there, it works exactly the way in which we had intended it to work, or maybe even better. So just to talk a little bit about the foundation and the interconnectivity a little bit more in detail, I think I've talked already about the capacity of the department, what we have in terms of staffing and funding and the things that we're doing regarding that, as well as the division structure. But I want to talk a little bit more in detail about the policies and procedures and those items. One of the things that we're doing with code enforcement, for instance, and I had the opportunity to look at numerous council presentations, listening to the concerns that residents may have brought to the podium during council meetings, and to try to figure out what can we do differently so that we're answering those questions before they even come to council. And so looking at policy and procedure, very particularly at the property maintenance code. One of the things I heard quite often from many residents were concerns regarding code enforcement, the property maintenance code. How do we make sure that we bring properties up to code? So what we're going to be doing right now is actually getting staff properly trained so that everyone that is involved with property maintenance actually has their IPMC. Previously, of course, that was in development services. And development services, I think, will be concentrating on making those buildings go vertical and dealing with new construction. But code compliance will now be concentrating on all of the existing structures. Once that certificate of occupancy has been given, then we will have a team of individuals that are well-equipped and well aware of what they need to do in order to help residents keep their property up to code, and the resources, hopefully, to help them do that. Training and development, one of the things that they will be doing not only is getting their IPMC, but also getting the other certifications that are also needed. So AAEC, which is the American Association of Code Enforcement, has various certifications that I am working with staff for them to obtain that, as well as the Code Enforcement League of Arizona. And so quite fortunately, we're going to be having some additional trainings from them as well. In terms of interconnectivity, there are quite a few things that we have started to do within the Neighborhood Services Department. One, of course, is working with Development Services and looking at the zoning ordinance and changes that we can make to the zoning ordinance that will hopefully help the community with a variety of things. We're also, of course, looking at our partnership with Public Works as it relates to a couple of neighborhood cleanup days that have happened on an annual basis, but I think we may have some opportunities to make some enhancements there as well. Externally, we're also looking at a connection with Yavapai County. They have a program called A Home of Your Own, where the plans and everything are already pre-approved, everything's been stamped. So literally an individual can come in with a set of plans and hopefully expedite that process to get a new home built, and hopefully at a reduced rate in what they may see in some of the planned development communities. So that's a program that we're looking at, and we're examining to see if we can implement something similar to that here in Prescott Valley. And the other thing that we're looking at is volunteer opportunities. We have gotten numerous phone calls with individuals that say, hey, if you happen to know someone that needs some help in their home, please give me a call, let me know, so that we can hopefully resolve any code compliance regulations that may happen to be going on with that property. And so we're trying to work very closely with our Human Resources Department so that we can have a list of volunteers specifically to help those individuals that really don't have either the physical capacity to be able to get something done, or maybe even the resources to be able to get that done. So we're really closely looking at those partnerships, defining those a little bit better and making it easier for the individuals to make those connections. In terms of department accomplishments to date, right now, as I said before, we're in the process of hiring that grants coordinator, which will give us the foundation that we need to move forward and look at additional opportunities, funding opportunities for various programs. We recently applied for a grant with the Arizona Department of Housing, ADO, for about $200,000. I was hoping before we had council meeting I would have an answer on that, but unfortunately we don't have that just yet. But I am hoping to have an answer one way or the other as to whether or not we will receive those funds. In terms of high-performing teams, and one of the things I don't want to forget to say is that it's very hard to do a lot of training and development. It is one of those costs that sometimes people don't really understand what that intrinsic value is. We've been able to bring CELA, which is the Code Enforcement League of Arizona, here to Prescott Valley to do their training, which saves us hundreds of dollars, not only in hotel fees and things like that for staff to be able to receive that training, but they get to have that training right here. And so we have 3 of our team members right now currently that are going through that training right here in Prescott Valley, and we are looking at doing the level 2 training for CELA, which means our entire team will be completely certified in CELA before the end of this calendar year. So I am extremely pleased that we've been able to do that and that we've been able to coordinate with that organization to make sure that our team is fully trained. Lastly, I'd like to talk a little bit about those marketing and PSAs. And you see this wonderful picture right here, and hopefully it pulls at your heartstrings because that's exactly what it's meant to do. In a recent snow, we realized that quite a few individuals were leaving their pets outside. And of course, we don't want to see that happen. So we, of course, put some things together with our communications department, and you will start seeing a lot more of those PSAs go out, not only being placed on the city's main page on their website, but also seeing those things pop up on social media. Hopefully we can start to change behaviors so that people will take better care of the animals. But in addition to that, you'll start to see additional PSAs for our code enforcement team and the other divisions as the department continues to grow. Lastly, wanted to talk a little bit about some additional opportunities for improvement for us. So one of the things that we're also looking at are the amendments to the zoning ordinance. So a lot of times our planning department and development services, they of course have one view of looking at things. Code enforcement, of course, looks at it from the point of view of how do we actually enforce these particular changes. And so I'm very proud of the partnership that we have had with development services in fully reviewing the zoning ordinance to ascertain opportunities, one, for us to look at attainable housing options, as well as to look at code compliance issues and zoning issues throughout the entire town. In terms of prosperous community, one of the things that we're looking at in that particular area is an annual event that I'm sure everyone is aware of, which of course is a neighborhood cleanup, a bulk trash cleanup. Right now, we have a tentative date set for that for May the 4th. But what I think is absolutely awesome about the coordination for the event this year, and you will get some additional information soon about some of those changes, is that we're going to take a program that had increased in cost to somewhere close to $180,000 for us to be able to do bulk trash pickup, and we think we've been able to cut that to about a third of that cost. And we've been able to do that really by working very closely with the Public Works Department, very closely with volunteers, the chamber, and working very closely with Mace Management. So we think we'll be able to not only still provide that wonderful resource that the town loves to have, but at the same time do that at a reduced cost and hopefully more efficiently as well. So I look forward to coming back to you and to provide you with more information about that program in the coming weeks. The other program that we're looking at is a graffiti abatement program. Again, looking at cost savings. We have been able to have some conversations right now with a couple of contractors so that we can hopefully reduce graffiti and abate graffiti a lot quicker, not only in working with our community services and public works department, but as well as code enforcement as well. It's quite often we'll get complaints and we go through our normal process to issue notice of violation and wait for that particular individual to be able to resolve that. But we think we've been able to work some things out within the program so that we can abate those violations within about 48 hours and do that again at a much reduced cost. So in the coming weeks, again, as we have some time to work out the details of those programs, we look forward to giving that information not only to the public, but as well as to some of those commercial properties and residents that may need that additional assistance. Attainable housing is probably the biggest concern I think that the community has been talking about. And so we have been working quite closely with a variety of partners to figure out how do we slowly start to chop away at the issues regarding attainable housing. And one of the programs that we're in the process of developing right now is a down payment assistance program. And so we're hoping that we'll be able to put some more meat and potatoes to that particular program so that you can have more understanding of how that would look. We're looking at doing that right now as a pilot program. So that we can have at least some way of starting to chip away at some of the attainable housing issues throughout the community. And of course, I've already talked about the CDBG program. If we, of course, are fortunate enough to be able to get that program implemented within the next year or so, one of the things that council will have on its plate is for us to do the needs assessment and then bring back to council what those opportunities are under CDBG and give you the opportunity to give your voice as to what you think that should look like here in Prescott Valley. And lastly, the biggest thing, again, that I think is important, and I said this earlier when we talk about evaluation and assessment, is the balanced scorecard. So our department is in the process right now of creating what we call a balanced scorecard. It looks at all the performance measures, the KPIs, what staff is doing on a regular basis, so that we can ascertain, are we doing that correctly? Are there opportunities for improvement? What are those efficiencies that we have not yet uncovered? And are there additional partnerships that we need to be looking at? Our balanced scorecard will eventually also tie into performance measures and things that we'll work out with HR. But we want to make sure that one, staff knows what they need to be doing when they're in the field, that we create a culture where we're trying to help, not hurt. And at the same time that we are, of course, addressing those things that council has indicated that you would like us to address in your Vision 2024 plan. I want to highlight, of course, not on all of the different divisions within neighborhood services, but I did want to highlight very closely on co-compliance because it seemed to be one of the concerns that I know was addressed when I first came on board. So one of the things that we're doing right now is doing a complete assessment of our inspection process. And in doing that inspection process, what we've noticed is that we've found some redundancy, some things that we, of course, can enhance, create, or change change so that we can hopefully shorten the time frame in terms of getting abatement, but at the same time, work very closely with residents that need that assistance or don't have the capacity, that we can have an opportunity to work with them a little bit closely. We are in the process right now of updating all of our forms, all of the notices of violation, notices of abatement, making sure that those things also align with what is in the state code, looking again at the appeals process to make sure that it is routing correctly into the correct entity, so that we can ensure that everyone has their due process regarding anything as it relates to code enforcement. We are also going to be implementing something called a compliance action form. It's quite often, especially because of the weather here, that if someone needed to pave a driveway in a commercial area, they cannot do that in the winter. But we also wanted to make sure that we have a commitment from them as to when they will be able to do it, that they actually have a contractor that they've already are in some type of contract services with, so that we can make sure that they then follow through with what they said that they were going to do and in the time frame that they said that they were going to do it. And so we will be implementing that in the coming months. We also, of course, as I mentioned before, making sure that everyone has their certifications so that they understand fully how to use all of these tools and to make sure that we ensure the due process rights of all residents. We're also ensuring that staff has all the correct safety equipment. So some of these things you will see that will come through in our FY25 budget request. We're providing options for staff to look at cases civilly rather than criminally. I don't think anyone needs to go to jail because they didn't cut their grass. However, if you do have someone that is not doing what they're supposed to do, they still have that option to be able to try a case criminally. But those cases would primarily go through myself as well as going through our legal counsel. In addition to that, one of the things we're also going to be implementing is skip tracing. It's quite often in any community, not just here in Arizona, that if someone passes away, for instance, they'll have something called heir property, where the children, grandchildren maybe still staying on that property, but unfortunately the property is still deeded in someone else's name. And sometimes that creates kind of a hiccup for us in being able to get compliance. And so we're looking at our options to do skip tracing, contracting for those services so that we can better understand who to get in touch with or any entity that may have some interest in that property as we move forward. And the last thing, of course, is develop an interactive website. I recognize, of course, that there are those individuals that are may not have access to the computer or internet or things of that nature. They may not be able to pull up a QR code, but there are those individuals that can. And so we want to provide as much information as possible so people are completely educated regarding any of the processes that fall within the Neighborhood Services Department, whether that is information on how to pull up an application for rehab for your home, to a PSA that a homeowners association may want to include in their newsletter, or anything regarding the town code. I think there needs to be, of course, some transparency in everything that we do, because when people know that the information is readily available, they don't question it quite as much. And they can also verify anything that we're doing, and to make sure that we're doing it the way in which we're supposed to be doing it. So you will see in the coming months certainly some updates to our website, as well as a lot more connectivity between us and our communications department with some of the videos and the educational announcements that we'll be putting out soon. So that completes my presentation. I am available for any questions that you may have.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you for putting this family of employees together to be the face of RPV, because a lot of them are out, almost all of them deal with residents on a daily basis. So thank you for that. I appreciate the connections in training that you had to get that training up here for our staff to go to. That's very impressive. As you know, this community, this whole area is resource rich. And I've invited some colleagues here today that I want to introduce so you know who they are. So Mike Kimmel is from Agape House, and he is building 6 units in town for transitional housing. The other exciting thing is that Agape House of Prescott is dropping the Prescott part of Agape House and will just become Agape House now. And then Suzanne Palomi is with A Safe Place. And as you know, they're opening a drop-in center off of Second Street for those experiencing homelessness. And their goal is to collect some statistics and data so that we can look in the future for grants or what have you for alternatives to their homelessness. And then Burt Hunt is with House of Hope, and they currently have 3 homes in Prescott Valley that service seniors who were experiencing homelessness, and now they're not anymore. And I think they're looking at a 4th one, kind of. And then my husband, Dean Hunt, represents Village of Hope, which is the shelter for women who are pregnant so that they can deliver their babies. That happens to be in Prescott, but it's good for everybody. So I just want to make sure you knew these people because they are great advocates in our community. I was happy to hear that you were looking into a home of my own because that was something that was in our report, the county program. So thank you very much for that. And that can help with affordability. And I'm very excited that you have a list of volunteers already.
Yes, ma'am.
And this community is resource rich, and I know there's a lot of people that want to help. So thank you for that. Can you talk a little bit, and you touched on it briefly, but can you talk a little bit more, since we have our friends in the audience, about housing goals? Because I know you have a wealth of experience. So can you touch on that a bit?
Yes, Mayor, members of council, one of the things that we're doing with our housing division is trying to define exactly how that will be operating moving forward. That's why that $200,000 grant from ADO, I think, is mission critical in us being able to kind of put some more, I guess, refinement to how we will be moving forward. There are 4 goals that we have currently identified for the housing program, which we also kind of captured within that grant application process. And the first goal, of course, is to preserve our existing housing stock. I don't think it is possible for us to really tackle affordable housing, attainable housing, workforce housing, whichever name you want to put on it, if we are not first preserving what we currently have. It's quite often just because of property maintenance issues that you may have a senior or someone else that loses their current housing, and that puts them in a situation where they may need some of the resources of the individuals that we have here in the room. So that is the very first goal that we have. Hopefully we can rehab homes so that we can have seniors, of course, age in place, and that we preserve what we currently have. Once we have once we stop bleeding the current housing that we have in terms of the housing stock and the dilapidation of any existing housing stock, then we look at how do we explore additional attainable housing goals. What do we build different? What do we build new? And a part of that, of course, will also come out of actually conducting a very extensive housing study so that we can look and actually figure out what does the current housing stock look like? What percentage of our housing stock needs a significant amount of resources and repair? And what percentage does not. Once your home is more than 20 years of age, of course, as everyone knows, there are just certain things you just have to do. And some residents may or may not have the resources to do that. The third part of that goal is to look at community development activities. And that can be any range of things that fall within that neighborhood pride kind of category. Again, preserving the neighborhood itself, making sure that people enjoy where they live and that they're giving back to the community. That's when you look at volunteer opportunities and things of that nature. And then the very last component of that housing plan is actually transparency in government. Just letting individuals know what we're doing, making sure they're aware of the different opportunities that are available to them, and making sure that we partner with as many agencies as we can, because government just can't do this alone. It really takes a village to be able to get it done. And there's some things that are absolutely fall within that nonprofit sector for them to handle. And there's some things that we can also partner with others so that we can handle some things and work together to get those things done.
Ms. Robinson, thank you. I'm very excited about CDBG. I ran that in a previous life, and so because of the size of our community, I think it's very much needed, and I know it's not easy to get that done, so thank you very much. And then the grant writer is long overdue, and I'm excited that maybe some of our friends in the audience will be able to work with that grant writer or be referred grants from the grant writer, and we can really serve our residents a lot better. So thank you very much for everything you're doing so far in a short amount of time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Ma'am, I want to thank you. I know it's a tough job when you're trying to enforce our codes and recognizing that we're not an HOA for the core portions of our town, but yet still we want to maintain good standards for our residents. I just ask that perhaps we just explore options for roll-off dumpsters in some different units, like unit 5 or 9 or 10 would be good. Just those residents might not have the opportunity to utilize our dump day and have those mobility options. So if we could just maybe look and explore what that really looks like, and if it is feasible, that would be great. If it's not, we understand.
Mayor, members of council, those are some things that we actually are looking at and working very closely with Public Works on. And there may be some opportunities throughout the year and not just reserving it for just one day within the current program funding that we have as it stands right now.
Great.
So we are exploring that.
Thank you, ma'am. Council, anything else for Ms. Robinson?
I do have a
Leyva.
comment. I had the opportunity to meet with you one-on-one for a bit. And I'm very, very impressed with everything that you're doing. It's just amazing to see your whiteboard at your office and looking at everything that you're working on at the same time and organizing everything. It was just, I was mind blown. So thank you. I think we're very, very lucky to have you, to have someone with your caliber and your good intentions and everything. It's just very refreshing. So thank you for everything that you're doing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up, item 2D, utility box mural project. Welcome, ma'am.
Hello, good afternoon, council members, mayor, vice mayor. My name is Colleen Bornschlegel, and I'm the Arts and Culture Coordinator for the town of Prescott Valley, working with the Community Services Department. And today I'm excited to share with you about a new project that we are pursuing here in Prescott Valley, the Utility Box Mural Project. You may have seen them around in different communities. The utility box murals are an inexpensive and unique way to beautify a city's business districts or neighborhoods and engage artists, citizens, visitors, and businesses to celebrate public art that represents the unique beauty and culture of our community. So as an overview, I'm going to start with some examples of various ways that different communities have done this similar program in their community. And then I'll go over some details about the pilot program that was done in Casa Grande, Arizona last spring and summer. That was a partnership through APS. And then lastly, I'm going to cover some details such as potential utility box sites, also a timeline, cost of the program, and some potential funding options, and then also benefits to the community, which is always very important. And then lastly, next steps taken to implement this project here in Prescott Valley. So a couple of examples. Utility box murals are definitely not a new thing, but have become more and more popular across the world even. The first example I want to point out is at the top there, some maybe not pronghorn necessarily, but some kind of animal there. That I wanted to show that as an example of the scalability of this project. This one here is in Cologne, Germany, and they have large block-sized transformer stations rather. And this was just to show the scale of the large scale canvas that would be available to artists in that way. The next one to the right with the blue sky and the flowers, that's from a program in Amersham, England. They have an annual initiative called Amersham in Bloom, and it is an initiative that supports or encourages citizens to make Amersham a more beautiful place through planting, cleanliness, and sustainability. And they implemented a utility box program within one of their annual programs there. Coming back to the States, LA County has copious amounts of boxes across the whole area. And they for the majority are managed by nonprofit organizations that connect the artists with utility boxes. One organization in particular is called Art to Empower, and their mission is to build a network of cultural oases by equipping artists with the tools to create socially minded, community uniting art in place, or art in public. And then a little closer to home, in Tempe, Arizona, some of you may be familiar with their broad public art program. They have been integrating utility box murals since 2012. They partner with the Downtown Tempe Authority, as well as the City Transportation and Traffic teams. And then also, currently, Tempe is accepting new applications for designs to replace some of their older murals that were painted back in 2012 to 2014. So I wanted to give that as an example of this program is sustainable, it's long-lasting, and it is always an option to come and paint new designs and invite new artists to participate. And then Casa Grande, Arizona, as I mentioned previously, is started a pilot program with APS, and they finished that program last spring and summer, and they are looking at expanding to a phase 3, which will be focused on city-owned boxes opposed to APS boxes. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a moment. So I wanted to show some specifics about the program in Casa Grande, because that is sort of the template that we would like to move forward on in a program similar to this in Prescott Valley. So I'll start on the left. Some of the partnerships that Casa Grande had, as I mentioned already, APS, they worked heavily with them. And they also worked with their Arts and Culture Commission, as well as the CG Mosaic Creative Communities team. And they also, as I mentioned already, they had 2 phases. The first 2 phases were directly working with APS. They are moving into a 3rd phase, which is city-owned boxes, and that's one of the distinct differences between, let's say, Tempe program, for instance, and Casa Grande's program. Tempe have focused mostly on their own city boxes, so they had been responsible for the entire process. With working with APS, APS will do a lot of the prep work, maintenance, make sure that the boxes are ready and prepared. So those are just some of the benefits of working with APS. So for the town of Prescott Valley, we're looking at similar partnerships, working with APS, and then our equivalent commission, the Parks, Arts, and Recreation Commission. Also our Friends group for the Prescott Valley Parks and Recreation as an option for fundraising and also awareness. And there's also a local group called the Prescott Area Arts and Humanities Council, which is one of the oldest standing art advocacy groups in the state of Arizona. And that could also be a potential group to reach out to as a way to bring more awareness and support to the program. So here is a map of some potential sites that I scouted out. We would like to focus on just 5 sites to begin with. So obviously this is more than what we would start with in phase 1. I want to bring your attention to the images on the left. Those are probably familiar sites right along Lakeshore. They're prominent, they're similar in size, and they're also just right on the corners of Civic Center campus, right along Lakeshore. So those are 3 options that I think would be excellent. And then shifting over to the entertainment district, a couple of prominent locations right outside of Rafters 11. And then also in the new build area between the large apartment building, you can see that in the background. That's right out in front of the Jersey Mike's restaurant. And then over towards the Fane Signature Group headquarters, there's another large box right out front of there. And then near Harkins Theater, you probably recognize the building. And then right along Glassford Hill Road, those are a little bit different than the other ones. It's a conglomerate of a few small different sizes, but still could be an optional canvas. And then also the Groom Transport Station, which every time I drive by there, I'm like, wow, that would be an excellent location. It's very visible. I think it would highlight a part of the outskirts of the entertainment district in a really nice way and spruce up that corner as well. So some of the things that we would consider when it comes to locations, Obviously, as I already mentioned, APS owned would be distinct. If we did want to move into a new phase and look at some of our town-owned boxes, that would be an option, but we'll stick with APS owned boxes for now. And we would also look at location, 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 not just for visibility, but also to look at safety concerns for the actual artists and their crew that they're using to work on the project, but also accessibility and some other just general considerations there. And so a general timeline, we are now already into March. So what we would want to do next, we would confirm our partnerships with APS. Been in contact with them. They know that we're interested, but we need to just solidify, fill out the contract and all that information, move forward there. And then we would select our 5 boxes. And then March through June would be our time where we would raise our funds and awareness, start bringing more attention to the program. We also have several special events and arts and culture programs leading through the spring into the summer that would be excellent opportunities to bring more attention to our program. And we'd also start contacting local businesses, not just the businesses that are surrounding the boxes that we're looking at using, but also the whole Prescott Valley area, different businesses that may want to be involved more so in the arts and culture and supporting public art in our community. And then July through the end of August, we'll have our official call to artists time where we will put out social media campaign, press release, and just a general public notice of our program, what we want to do, and see what kind of designs we can get. And then in September, we'll have our deadline, and we will select our final designs. The artists or art group that submit their designs will get a notice to proceed mid-September, and they can begin on or before October 1st, and they will need to be completed with their murals by the end of October. I do want to make a special note about October. Some of you may remember it is National Arts and Humanities Month. So I felt that would be a really appropriate national initiative that we could tie in our program, not just as a celebration for public art, but also as a way to tag our project in with a larger vision of public art in our communities. So looking at the cost, as I mentioned before, it's an affordable program. We are looking at budgeting $500 per mural. And then something that Casa Grande did that I thought was really excellent is they incorporated a competition of sorts where they selected their favorite mural at the end of the program. The one for phase 2, I believe, was the high school advanced art club, which is kind of cool. Their design was chosen, and I love supporting the arts for the children. And so with that, and then the 5 murals, we are looking at approximately $3,000 for the entire program. And the first place that we would look at for that funding is we would be reaching out to various companies that could maybe donate supplies to help supplement, because that $500 that's gifted to each mural artist would be used to cover materials, supplies, and their time. So half of that amount would be allocated at the beginning to purchase supplies, but if we can get supply donations to help supplement that, that would just make the program that much more strong and also encourage more artists to be involved. We'd also reach out to local businesses for sponsorships and other resource and funding. And then remaining costs can be covered by a arts and culture donation fund that we have that has accumulated over the years from various art class registration fees. So that is just a line of budget funds that we have available if needed. But we, of course, would love to focus on how the community wants to support first. And now looking at some of the benefits, there are many, many benefits to this program, in my opinion. Again, low cost, it's very affordable and an approachable program. It also encourages diverse community engagement. In some of my research about this program, several of the artists mentioned that they had had really cool conversations with passersby as they were working on the project, or people find out about their project they're working on. It's an opportunity for artists, local community members, as well as businesses and also tourists, and that's definitely a topic of conversation. We want to have more people come and visit our town and see what we have to offer them. So public art is always a good pull. And we also, general beautification of our community and also an ability to highlight our local culture, some of our local nature and animal life, and also highlights of our area. Also, it's a flexible expansion of our already existing mural program. We do have a handful of murals already, so this is just an easy tie-in that we can continue to expand that. And then, of course, cover up and deter future graffiti. That's just a general understanding of murals and one of the benefits there. And so I have already covered the general timeline, but just as a review, these are some of our sort of next steps to work towards implementing this program here. Again, finalize details with APS and other community groups that we'll be working with. Engage businesses, again, both around the boxes that we have selected, as well as the Prescott Valley community abroad. And we would select our primary 5 boxes that we would start with. And then we would want to confirm our funding source, which I already feel very confident about our funding there, but we just need to decide exactly where that comes from. And then we would also prepare, and then our next would be to call the artists, and we would prepare for that social media campaign, public notice, and that would be again through July through the end of August. And then finally, we would have our murals installed by the end of October. So with that, that is the end of my presentation. Are there any questions or comments?
Vice Mayor?
Colleen, thank you so much. I've been wanting this forever, and it's going to make us look cleaner and crisper and more welcoming, so thank you. Do you expect that you're going to use nonprofits to make submittals or school children to make submittals? Is it going to be a free-for-all?
So one thing, I want to avoid a free-for-all.
Okay.
One of the key pieces of this program in any community for it to be successful is to have really high caliber artists and high caliber designs. We aren't going to just throw any mural up there because that's just not what we want to do. We want to stick with quality. So my plan is to reach out in kind of our general way that we have in the past for other art programs, art shows, and different things. If we don't get the designs and the number that we want to select from, then we're going to go out a little bit further and maybe reach out to entire Yavapai County or maybe even the entire state of Arizona. I know local artists here have applied to do murals in Tempe, so it's definitely feasible to reach outside, but I would really love to focus first on local artists because we have incredibly talented artists here within our community already.
Great, and maybe they can talk to a nonprofit or a school and maybe help a partnership.
Absolutely, and I definitely will reach out to the schools. I think I'm a little slow to reach out to the elementary level schools, but definitely the high school level art classes. Currently, the Youth Arts Month show is on display at the library, and you'll notice some of the high school artists are just phenomenal. So I think that could be a good option.
And then can I schedule the same presentation at the next Friends meeting?
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Council, any other questions, comments?
I was just thinking that while you were talking that at the Yavapai County Fair, they often have artist displays and from around the county. And I've seen some beautiful art displayed. And so I know that you have a wonderful pool to draw from, and including what you were just saying, the art that was displayed at the library was pretty incredible by our high school students. So this is a pretty exciting project, and I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Up, Sister Cities update, Mr. Barton. Welcome, sir.
Mayor, Council, glad to be here. We would like to provide an update on the town's status for developing a Sister Cities partnership. A Sister City is a relationship that's broad-based. It's long-term partnership between 2 communities in 2 countries. It's a relationship that's officially recognized after the highest elected official from both communities sign off on an agreement to become sister cities. There's many benefits to becoming sister cities that revolves around the exchange of knowledge, best practices, innovative approaches, new strategies for problem solving, arts and culture, commerce, business relations, tourism, students. So there's many different opportunities. There's also an organization, Sister Cities International, SCI. It's a 501c3 organization. It has over 2,000 partnerships in over 140 countries. So it's very large. And many Arizona cities have a Sister Cities partnership. Prescott, just right down the road, has 3, one in El Salvador, one in Germany, one in Mexico. Sierra Vista has 2, Germany, Mexico. Scottsdale has 7, all over the world, Canada, China, Kenya, Mexico, Switzerland. And so the bigger the city typically has more, the smaller has less. There's no criteria to how many partnerships a city can have. Our history, last year staff worked with the consulate to search for partnerships within the state of Sonora in Mexico. The consulate came back with different options. Most were under the population of 12,000, so it just wasn't a good fit for a town of 50,000. So the consulate expanded the search to all of Mexico, and we found 2 potential candidates that identified with many matching characteristics as Prescott Valley. And so the question is, why Mexico? Well, a fifth of our population is Hispanic, so we have a large demographic. We're also immediately adjacent to Mexico. It's our largest trade partner. Many cities in Arizona who have a sister city partnership have chosen Mexico for that same reason. It's just an ideal candidate. Population was a major determinant in deciding what city is a match. So population determines similar infrastructure, size and scope of economy, similar demographics, growth rates. So population was a major search criteria. And so as I mentioned, we had 2 potential candidates. One is Nuevo Casas Grandes. This is about 3 hours southeast of Arizona. It's in the Mexican state of Chihuahua. The population is 65,753 at an elevation of 4,780. Arid climate, has major industries in plastics, grindstones, abrasives, and tourism. The second candidate is Chapala. This is about an hour south of Guadalajara, located on Mexico's largest freshwater lake, Lake Chapala. It's in the Mexican state of Jalisco. The population is 55,196, elevation 5,000. Climate is subtropical, and the major industries are tourism, plastics, machinery, and mechanical. So with that, next steps, we are at the very beginning of this process. It will take time to get us through the process. And the last thing we want to do is rush to find a partnership. We want to find a good fit for Prescott Valley. And so with that, we'd send letters of intent to mayors. This is just interest. They would reciprocate interest back to the town. We'd work with the consulate to set up several meetings to discuss what a partnership would look like and to determine if it would be a good fit. We'd select one municipality. We'd work through agreements of what the program would look like, exchanges, and any stipulations or conditions we'd want to add. We'd have an in-person signing ceremony that would be hosted by the consulate in Phoenix, and then the sister city partnership would be official. So with that, I will take any comments or questions.
Great job. As you mentioned, it's a long process, and we're in the very beginning stages, but it's something that I believe it's important for Prescott Valley just to have that sort of relationship with another community of a similar size, like you mentioned. So look forward to more details as we proceed forward. Councilwoman?
I think this is a very productive and a beautiful program. I do feel personally that, along with what the mayor just said, that we do need to proceed slowly and with caution, especially considering the current climate that is being generated from the cartel in that country, and the safety of our ambassadors, whether they would travel down there or not. I would like to see further study about what the international organization has to say about safety and security, and what is being done to protect our citizens here in the United States, involving any kind of international travel, especially down to Mexico.
Thank you.
Council, anything else? Comments? Councilwoman Leyva.
I think this is a great partnership to expose our town, to make other cities aware that we exist. And it's just, I cross the border a lot when my family members are down in Mexico. And when I say I'm going back to Prescott Valley, they say, where is Prescott Valley? So I have to explain to people where Prescott Valley is. So this is a great way to make noise out there that we are here and we're growing. We're an excellent community and we have a lot of things in common. So great program.
Anything else for Mr. Martin? Thank you, sir. Good job. With that, we're adjourned.